You probably think of America as the most technologically advanced nation on Earth, right? Home to Silicon Valley, soaring skyscrapers, and a world-leading high-tech industry. But behind this gleaming facade lies a problem that affects millions of families every single day: a dangerously outdated power grid. While the country leads in innovation, its electricity infrastructure is decades behind, leaving households vulnerable to outages, soaring bills, and the constant uncertainty of something as simple as keeping the lights on. From the freezing winters in Texas to the scorching heat waves in California, the fragility of this system becomes painfully clear every time a storm hits or demand for power spikes. But the story of America's power grid isn't just about electricity, it's about real people, their daily struggles, and a system that has failed to evolve with their needs. At the very heart of this crisis is the age of the power grid itself. A huge portion of the United States' electricity infrastructure was built in the mid-20th century. We're talking about components that are over 70 or even 80 years old. Transformers, substations, and high-voltage lines that were designed for a much smaller population and simpler energy demands are now buckling under the strain of modern America. Think about it: millions of new devices, air conditioners running full blast, electric vehicles charging overnight, massive data centers, and an ever-growing, insatiable need for reliable power. These aging systems are far more prone to failures, and even a minor issue can cascade into a massive outage, plunging entire neighborhoods or even cities into darkness. For ordinary Americans, this isn't some abstract concept. It's the sudden blackout that kills your internet connection while you're working from home. It's the flickering lights that make you wonder if you should unplug your expensive electronics. And, maybe most painfully, it's the skyrocketing electricity bills that show up in your mailbox each month. Maintaining and modernizing the grid is an incredibly expensive, complex, and politically challenging task. Utilities often delay major upgrades to avoid the high upfront costs. Meanwhile, a focus on short-term profits and a tangled web of regulatory barriers slow down the long-term improvements we desperately need. Unlike our roads or bridges, most of us don't actually see the grid's problems until a disaster strikes, which makes investing in this critical infrastructure feel less urgent to politicians. To make matters worse, the U.S. power grid isn't one single entity. It's fragmented into several regional systems that don't always communicate efficiently with each other. This lack of integration makes it much harder to share electricity during emergencies, leaving some areas far more vulnerable than others when they need power the most. This combination of outdated technology, chronic underinvestment, and a fragmented system creates a fragile foundation that simply cannot reliably support the country's growing energy needs. The consequences of this outdated grid extend far beyond simple inconvenience. Families all across the United States are facing both direct and indirect challenges. Power outages disrupt work-from-home setups, online education for our kids, and life-saving medical equipment that relies on a constant stream of electricity. Extreme weather events, like heat waves and cold snaps, become genuinely dangerous, particularly for the elderly, young children, and those with underlying health conditions. And even when the electricity stays on, families are paying the price through those ever-increasing utility bills. The costs of maintenance, emergency repairs, and fluctuating fuel prices are all passed directly on to you, the consumer. Middle-class households, which were once able to comfortably budget for their essentials, now find themselves having to cut back on groceries, healthcare, or other necessities just to keep the lights on. For low-income families, the burden is even heavier, creating a cycle of energy insecurity that can seriously impact their health, safety, and overall quality of life. Climate change has only poured gasoline on this fire, further exposing the grid's vulnerabilities. Extreme heat drives up electricity demand for cooling, while wildfires, hurricanes, and ice storms relentlessly damage our critical infrastructure. Recovering from these disasters is costly and time-consuming, and guess who foots the bill? Utilities pass the financial burden right back onto their customers. In California, we've seen wildfire-related shutdowns force millions of people to go without electricity for hours or even days at a time. In Texas, winter storms have completely crippled the grid, leaving families literally freezing in their own homes. These events highlight a stark reality: our power grid, built for a completely different era, is struggling to meet the demands of a rapidly changing climate. Electricity pricing in the U.S. adds another layer of complexity to this whole mess. Many regions operate under regulated monopolies, where utility companies are allowed to recover their costs and guarantee their profits through approved rate structures. This means when that old, aging infrastructure finally fails or needs a desperate upgrade, those expenses are automatically baked into your bills. This system is supposed to ensure reliability, but it also keeps costs stubbornly high, leaving Americans paying more and more while the underlying problems persist. On top of that, our continued reliance on fossil fuels, with their volatile market prices, contributes to those wild fluctuations in your electricity costs. And while the push for renewable energy is growing, which is a good thing, the transition itself adds even more costs for energy storage, grid integration, and backup systems to ensure power is available when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. Let's make this personal for a moment. Imagine you're a family in Texas during a severe winter storm. The temperatures have plummeted below freezing, your pipes are at risk of bursting, and your heating system suddenly stops working because the grid can't handle the peak demand. You're forced to huddle together in one room with space heaters, if you have them, or maybe even head to a public shelter. All the while, you know your utility bill is about to spike because of emergency energy pricing. Or picture a family in California during wildfire season. You're experiencing rolling blackouts implemented to prevent new fires from starting. The food in your refrigerator spoils, the air conditioning shuts down during a day of extreme heat, and elderly or vulnerable family members face serious health risks. These examples show that the consequences of a failing power grid are deeply personal. They're not just abstract policy problems you read about online. So, can we fix this? The good news is yes. Fixing America's outdated power grid is absolutely possible, but it requires a long-term commitment, strategic investment, and systemic reform. Upgrading the infrastructure with smart grids, advanced sensors, and automated systems would dramatically improve reliability and help prevent widespread outages. Better regional integration would allow different parts of the country to share energy more effectively during emergencies. Expanding renewable energy, especially when paired with modern energy storage solutions like large-scale batteries, would reduce our reliance on volatile fossil fuels while helping to stabilize costs over the long run. Regulatory reform is also critical. We need to realign the incentives for utility companies so they prioritize long-term reliability and efficiency over short-term profits. This could reshape the entire system for the better. More transparent billing and public education can also help families understand exactly where their money is going, building much-needed trust in the system. America's outdated power grid is more than just an infrastructure problem, it is a human problem. Every blackout, every rising electricity bill, and every weather-related emergency highlights a system that is fundamentally struggling to serve its people. Families are the ones bearing the cost, both financially and emotionally, while policymakers and utility companies scramble to catch up with modern demands. The story of our grid is a powerful reminder that even in the world's most advanced nation, technological and political progress doesn't automatically guarantee that our everyday lives are secure, reliable, and affordable. The question now isn't whether the grid can be fixed, but whether America will finally take the bold steps needed before millions more families feel its devastating impact. Thanks for watching. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the issues that shape our world. We'll see you in the next one.